All right. Oh man, you figured
I was reading something. I wasn't even paying attention to you, man. Come on.
Hey there, hi there, ho there, everybody.
Hey,
Four Colour
copyright
Café.
violation.
Hey,
copyright violated, sir.
You gave me the show for the week.
I took it back too.
Anyways, folks, it is time for the Four Colour Café. We are so glad that all of you are here. Obviously, we've got multiple chats going on. So I see Nerdy Ogre from the Hill, Michael Chad, Jason Harris, and plenty of other people hanging out. RPG Dad, Mike Percival. So if I forget anyone, I apologize. But we are super excited to be here. We're going to be talking Star Trek 2D20 with okay, and I knew I should have asked this beforehand. Dismuke. Okay.
We established this in the backstage. It's Aloysius.
Yeah.
Aloysius Thor.
Aloysius Thor. Exactly. Radiant Thunder. That's actually what we're going to call him.
But we've got Michael Dismuke, Jim Johnson, and our old friend Patrick Goodman, who are all writers, contributors, and managers for the 2D20 Star Trek game from Modiphius.
So it's called Star Trek Adventures.
Oh, Star Trek.
Might want to hit that. Just saying. So everyone wants to know I've decided to let Brian host tonight, and clearly that was a mistake, but that's okay. Cody and I are going to be here to hold him up by the short straps and make sure he gets it done.
So, anyways,
let's get up with a lot, Jim.
Let's do this. Let's just go around the table really quick. Everybody introduce themselves, and we'll start with the top because we're just gonna take 2 seconds, anyways. Yeah,
sweet summer child,
Brian with gaming with ADHD. Then we've got.
There, and I actually know Jim from the old days on the TrekRPG.net board, same place I know Patrick from. And I got to say, Jim, absolutely love the fact that you've somehow managed to live the dream of going from being a fan to in charge of the goddamn Star Trek role-playing game. Well done, mate. Well done.
Not sure how that happened, but I'm grateful.
Well, it worked out however it is. Cody.
Hey, GM Cody. You guys know me. I have a channel, GM Cody. Sure, Doc. Whatever you say.
We're ride or die, Pat. You're up next, Pat.
Hi, I'm Patrick Goodman. I'm a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures, and you've probably read my stuff. I'm in both core books. I'm all over the place.
You're also far from your mic right now.
I'm too far from my mic. Okay, well, these things happen because...
We're not professional in case anybody's new here.
Yeah.
First Four Colour Cafe. We are so ununprofessional, like really.
Just the way we like it. Jim.
That's how
Hot and
we
spicy,
roll.
Texas style.
Moving
Jim.
over, Jim.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jim Johnson. I am the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and the Captain's Log solo RPG, both published by Modiphius Entertainment. Started off as a freelance writer. As Bear said, have a long history on the Trek RPG net forums. Low May They Rain. I think they're still up there, right? I can't remember. It's been a while since I checked, but they're on. They're hanging on. But
It's become a hive of scum and villainy, sadly, but that's okay.
Okay, got it. But thrilled to be here. Happy to see you all, and I'll kick it over to. I'm the co-host on Continuing Conversations with Michael. I want to make sure we remember to say that. But go ahead, Michael. Introduce yourself.
Continuing Conversations podcast, the #1 podcast for Star Trek Adventures and Captain's Log RPG, Jim, right?
Possibly the only podcast.
Yeah,
But yes,
is this huge competition? Is there a field here? I mean, what's going on?
Ouch. So I'm Michael Dismuke. I'm a super fan. That's how it all started. I'm Trekkie for life. And I am a blogger on Continuing Missions, which is literally the #1 fan site for Star Trek Adventures RPG and Captain's Log. As Jim mentioned, a fellow podcaster there, and have been so graced that I have the privilege of being a freelance writer for both of those Star Trek Adventures and Captain's Log. And happy that you guys had us here today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we are very, very happy to have you. Real quick, Michael or Jim or whoever wants to send me a link to your podcast so I can get that in
the #1 Star Trek Adventures and Continuing Missions podcast. Brian, come on. Like, that's clearly the tagline you need to be hitting over and over again. Come on, man.
Okay, remember, Bear, gaming with ADHD. I'm
Yes,
lucky if I remember 3 of the words. So, you know.
Don't make me pull up the Nerds Nerd bingo card and make the dad face. That's the worst.
All right. So, Star Trek Adventures. I guess we'll start with Jim. How is Star Trek Adventures going?
How's it going? I mean,
Since
it's
you're
going
the project
great.
manager.
Yeah, I mean, we started developing the game back in 2016, and it's now 2024, and we're still firing along on all thrusters. The licensor loves us, and we love the licensor, and we love our fans, and we've got a huge slate of products coming out in 24. I'm working on 25. We're planning ahead to 26, so I think we're in good shape. Just it doesn't hurt that there's a steady stream of new Star Trek on the air. And they just announced that the Section 31 movie is being in production right now, which is pretty cool. Rumors are afoot that Starfleet Academy series will be happening at some point. And then there's another one. Maybe Legacy. They're kicking it. They're kicking it to the fans on Legacy. They're saying start the letter writing campaign like Star Trek fans have been doing for 50 years now. Get your letter writing campaign going, and if you want to see Star Trek Legacy happen, after the events of Picard season 3, start writing those letters and let your voice be heard, because that's what kind of brought Prodigy back to life. They found a new home. They found a new home on Netflix, and I'm assuming we're gonna get a season 2 of that. So Star Trek is alive and well right now.
Yeah, if anything, just do it for me. I'm a 7 fan, my number 1 character. So selfishly, just do it for me.
So, Jim, I have a question, which is, do you guys now have the dubious honor of being the longest surviving Trek RPG license in the history of Trek RPG licenses?
I think it depends on how you look at it. We were talking about that a few weeks ago. Because I think FASA had the license for 8 years. So we're right on the cusp of eclipsing FASA.
Nice.
But if you look at the license, depending on how you view Armadillo Design Bureau has that.
Amarillo, but I like that you call them Armadillo. It's Amarillo. It's Amarillo, Texas. They were based out of. I'm never going to have those guys on the show. Oh boy.
Well, my apologies. I'm a little dyslexic, so I see the letters and it looks like Armadillo to me. So. But anyway,
that's what we call it. That's licensed off the Star Trek technical manual. It's not the same deal, right?
It's not the same, but like they could probably say we have a Star Trek license in perpetuity, and we'll never beat that because it's been 30 odd years now. But as far as mainstream Star Trek, I think we are right on the edge of going past FASA, and I think I'd have to look at the product list. They had a really robust slate of products when they were in their day, which is really impressive for the 80s, right? I mean, they had so much stuff, which is cool. I think if you include all the digital stuff that we do for STA, we've probably gone past them in terms of sheer number of product. But I mean, who cares about that, right? It's just the love of the franchise is all in there. So I think sometime this year we'll probably go past them.
Jim, it matters. It matters a lot because basically FASA produced a ton of stuff people love. That's for sure. Yeah. But you guys have produced, I'm telling you, a metric container full of stuff, and it's been very interesting reading a lot of it. It's been very interesting checking it out. I mean, I like the game a lot. I'm running 3 live plays of it currently on the TSRPG. But at the end of the day, I just was thinking about that today. I'm going, you guys have had the license the longest, and given Paramount's history with licensees, it's great to hear you say that you're getting along well with the licensor and all that kind of stuff. I'm glad to hear that because
it's really interesting because if you think about the last few years, Paramount had some things moving around, right? And then Nickelodeon came in when Prodigy was happening, and then there was a lot of shuffling around, and even now publicly there's rumors that Paramount might be on the sales block, right? And they may be looking to shift that to somebody else again. And somehow the licensing team keeps moving along, and we just kind of move along with them, and it just stays solid. So hopefully that'll continue.
And I have a question too. I'm sorry, I'm so used to interviewing Jim all the time. I think I would have to ask if there's ever been a RPG that had such a close relationship with Paramount and CBS, because we always talk about, myself and Jim on our show, I can't believe who we get on the show. I can't believe how we're one arm's length away from the TV creators. So I'm just curious historically if the others had such a close association with Paramount.
I'd venture no.
Yeah.
Based on the stuff that we saw come out, even with Lug, who was probably the closest up until a point, I'd say no.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet that just and Michael, you know this because of the people that we've had on the show. Like a lot of the talent and the production people, like they're all plugged into social media now, right? So like that's something that another Star Trek RPG's never had before, is that whole social media component, where you got designers and developers and actors and production people on Twitter or X or whatever, and on social media interacting with the fans and interacting with us, right? So it's like, and like some of them are saying, "Oh yeah, Star Trek Adventures, I play that game." And so it just blows our mind. Like, Dr. Erin McDonald, she's the resident science advisor for all the shows, and she actively plays Star Trek Adventures. And like when I reached out to her, I was like super nervous fanboy. Like, oh, would you have any interest in writing for the RPG? Like, do you even know what an RPG? Are you familiar with the Star Trek Adventures? And she's like, oh yeah, I play it all the time. And I was like, what?
Even Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, who played the old system. I think they played Decipher or FASA RPG, the lead comic writers for Star Trek through IDW Publishing, and they are bringing their RPG into their comics. Thomas Maroney, lead art director for STO. His game, the USS Ross, which started with Jackson Lansing's, Eric Campbell's game, is now showing up in Picard seasons 2. So it's really interesting how these universes are imploding.
Picard season 3 really did give us a huge fan base bump with all the ships that showed up that were just non-canon and then suddenly they were canon and stuff like that. Right. And it's good. It's good to see that type of stuff happening, because there has been a giant schism in the fandom since 2009, and we have to, it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and it'll always be there. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's as big as the one that was the schism between TOS and TNG. But I think Picard season 3 went a long way to bridging the gap for a lot of fans, because it was such an excellent season of Trek. It was on point in a way that everything else may or may not be missing the mark for people.
Yeah, Shaw will fix it all. Shaw was the blood. Shaw was the blood that it caused.
Oh my God,
to unite all of fandom.
Dude, he is amazing. And when I hear Metallis say he has a cool way to bring Shaw back, I'm like, all right, I'm listening. I'm definitely listening to this. Let's find out. Sorry, I'm the resident Trek head amongst these guys.
Cheap plug. I'm in Star Trek Explorer magazine next month, and I did something about that person. So look for it.
Ooh. All right. Okay, Brian, I'll hand the reins back to you, man.
You sure about that?
Don't push it.
So then I guess let's throw a question to Michael, since this is his first time here. So how did you get involved with the Trek RPG?
Blame Jim. So
okay.
So
blame him. I thank him.
Yeah. So this was actually the very first Star Trek RPG I played through Modiphius. I was a big time Marvel fan for over 30 years, but I was never satisfied just playing. After we played our games, I documented everything into small stories. So what happened is, the minute I started picking up STA through the playtest, Living Campaign playtest, the person I used to write Marvel plot points with on their blog started up the Continuing Mission Star Trek blog, and I just started posting like a mad person, just posting, playing the game. Jim Johnson noticed me. He noticed that I was producing, and the people on Continuing Missions were posting a lot of content faster than, as he said, could get through the approval process with CBS Paramount. So he approached me in 2019 probably, or 2020. My first product came out in 21. I'm on my 16th published book with that. So really, I have to thank Jim Johnson, because he's put it. He really walked the walk, not just talk the talk. But he said he wanted to expand who's writing Star Trek to really represent IDIC, which is of course the mantra of Star Trek, and he started inviting people, including me. So I really feel privileged. I had only done some self-published stuff before with a manga that I write called Game Masters that I did through San Diego Comic Con. And Jim introduced me to the world of Star Trek, and it's fun. And I love now, being able to play it, but also be able to have some influence on the genre. It makes me very happy. So thank you, Jim.
Which Marvel game are you talking about?
Oh, I was all TSR. I was all phaser rip all day, bruh.
No.
So they were the only shop in town in the 80s, right? I mean, it was.
I had every TSR.
Me and my group, it was a steady diet of D&D, Star Frontiers, Marvel superheroes in Boot Hill. I think Gamma World didn't they have Gamma World at some point too? Yeah, but mostly D&D Star Frontiers and Phase Rip. Yeah, that was the classic.
I'm learning to handle that, but it makes my teeth grind when I hear people call it Phase Rip. It's MSH.
Man, come on! I was 13 when I started playing it. Leave me alone, bruh.
I was 6.
Yeah, Bear, I guess that's a good point. We should be, if we're going to call MSH Phase Rip, we should call D&D Thaco, right?
Exactly. There you go. That's the spirit, Jim. I love it. Thank you, Hungar, by the way, for renewing your membership. I appreciate that. And for all the ones you bought for Brian.
I was going to say, he also tossed in gifted 5 memberships. So thank you very much for that as well, Hungar. So Michael, what is your favorite product that you've worked on for Star Trek Adventures?
I was going to say initially the Game Masters and Players Guide, because so many people have used that to just up their game and to be better around the table. I have to say, just, part ego and bias, I was the lead writer on Captain's Log, and I was able to go to Gen Con and kind of see the impact of what a release like that is. And I just can't believe, honestly, it's way more successful than I thought it was going to be. So just for impact alone, Captain's Log has really, he has the books. Don't they feel good in your hands? The Game Master's Guide. So I love them all, but I do have to say Captain's Log is probably the most life-changing for me, because I didn't know there was such a desire for it out there. Both me and Jim were really surprised at how many people wanted solo RPG. It was really
I have a question about this, because I don't get the solo RPG thing at all personally. Like, I missed the bus on that one 100%. Explain what Captain's Log is, if you can, please. I'd really like to know what this thing is.
Sure. So what it was, do you want to take it, Jim?
No, I was going to encourage you to.
Okay.
Mr. Lead Writer.
So I'm with you on that, Bear. In fact, when Jim asked us to look at it, it took me a long time, along with the creative team, to convince ourselves that we wanted to do it, because I will not write something unless I believe in it. I'm like that. I have to be passionate about it. So I had known about 5 Parsecs from Home, Starforge, Ironforge, and some of these other solo RPGs, but I needed to know what was going to convince me, a diehard tabletopper, to actually play it. So I agree with you completely. So just understand that we've heard that a lot, and people, when they pick it up, they're like, oh, I get it. So what it is life sometimes makes it that you don't have people to play with. This is my story. Sometimes you just don't have people to play with. I wanted a game that kept me on the edge of my seat with probability mathematics that makes it so I have to sit there and get my creative energies going. And I literally sit there screaming and exciting myself sometimes with these dice rolls. And you can even see us live play, me and Jim, on Continuing Conversations, our podcast. You can actually hear us play. So for me, it was the creative exercise mixed with me going where no one has gone before, because it's a roll of the dice. So I really encourage people to try it out once. It's kind of addicting. And now my tabletop group, we kind of, for instance, we now do it where they're playing our group game, but they can go off and have their solo campaign and use it as a career event and bring it back into our main game. So we found some really creative uses of it.
Sort of like a blue booking thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Interesting. Well, our mutual dearly departed friend, Doug, was a big fan of it, and he had talked to me a lot about it. And I was like, okay. And I know I'm supposed to be getting a review copy at some point from Modiphius, so I'll definitely check it out, and I'll do an honest review here on it. But I got to say, like, I just, for me, the solo adventuring idea, it's like, that's time I could be using to work on my campaigns. That's time I could be using to write. So I don't get it, but I understand that it's really popular right now. Like, it's
you could use it to build a campaign. I've actually rolled up scenarios that have become published Star Trek Adventure modules. So I used it in order to drive my writing and create stories that can be played in group settings. So it can be a creative exercise too.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really good point. Another member of our kind of circle in these parts, Crafty Matt, he talks about doing solo RPGs as GM prep. Yeah, so maybe it's not necessarily about the heroes, but what are the villains doing? What are the bad guys doing? And you can explore some of those things so that you have that backstory ready for your players at the table. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential there. I will admit I have the PDF. I get distracted very easily, so I have not read all of it yet. But no, I do think that there's a lot of potential there. So so what was it really that made you want to do it? I mean, it was like, because I'm kind of with Bear with the to me, it's about being at the table. Yeah, but there is this push lately for everyone just like, oh, I'm going to do solo RPG. So
I think it's it's an opportunity to scratch a different itch. I think there's a lot of solo RPGs out there right now. Some of them are journaling games. Some of them are actually more gamified games where you're actually playing through the game. And then Captain's Log is kind of in between the two. You can play it as a game, and you can use it as a journaling game, or you can use it as a tool for STA. Whatever. I think just having seen the success of a lot of solo RPGs, especially during the pandemic, right? Because a lot of people weren't able to meet face to face with their groups anymore, just because of all the circumstances, and a lot of people went online. And I mean, even now, one of the most common things I see on all game forums, not just for Star Trek or Modiphius games, but like people are having a real hard time finding other people to game with, and to find other, like, who I need a game master to run this game. No one wants to run the game. Everybody wants to play it. And it's like whatever game you're playing, right? Except maybe D&D, because that's the 800-pound gorilla, and everybody plays D&D, right? Or even game masters it. And so there was a very steady a number of solo RPGs that came out during the pandemic, and people were like, I need to scratch my gaming itch. I can't do it any other way, so I'll try this solo RPG. And we noticed, Modiphius, there hasn't really been as far as we could tell, like a major IP kind of property that did the solo RPG. And there's maybe an opportunity to try something with Star Trek and have this major IP come in with a fully dedicated solo RPG, as opposed to like an add-on to the existing game line, and make it a full-blown core book all by itself, and it's its own kind of entity. And I mean, really, to be honest, we had no idea what kind of reaction we would get to it. Right? We were kind of taking a shot in the dark. We thought it would be cool and different and kind of popular, but we weren't really sure. And then it came out and went really, really well, way better than we were expecting. The first print run sold out. We had to rush another print run before the holidays, and I think we just missed the holidays because of the distribution times and all that crap. But so it was surprising to see how many people were excited by it. And what I've been really gratified about is that a lot of people are using it to like just write creatively, right?
Yeah.
They're able to scratch an itch that they couldn't do. Like, I mean, Michael and I, we've seen tons of comments, and even Patrick, I know you've talked about this too.
Yeah.
Where people say, I've always wanted to write Star Trek, but I didn't have the push, right? I needed something to push me to do it, and
Sure.
they didn't have the connective tissue to pull it all together. And then a bunch of these people, they picked up the book, they read it, they saw all the great writing advice that Michael and the team put together in there. It was like, oh, now I can do this. Like we've given you permission to be creative and go write Star Trek, go write your own Star Trek stories, and people are off and running with it and putting it up on Twitch and YouTube and blogs and all that stuff. It's super exciting to read all that stuff, because like I'm a huge Star Trek reader, and I love to read Star Trek stories, whoever writes them, right? So like I'm kind of like fulfilling my own wish, because now I can go read everybody's Star Trek stories and just enjoy them, and then remember that oh wow, we made that we made that possible by breaking the thing out. So it's been really cool. And I promise, I did want to address one question in the chat. L said, why play a solo RPG instead of a video game? Well, here's one reason. A video game is created by programmers and artists and so on and so forth, and no matter how big of a world they say it is, there's still guardrails on it. There's only so much creativity you can have in a video game. At some point you're going to hit the borders. It's like a holodeck, right? At some point you're going to hit the edges, and you're not going to be able to get beyond that, right? Like I love Skyrim to death, but after 1,000 hours of playing Skyrim, I can't go any further with it. I can't make new stuff with it, right? But with a solo RPG, especially with Captain's Log and Starforged and Iron Sworn, you can do literally anything you can imagine, right? You use the random tables, you use your imagination, you use the dice to help you out to do some of the matrices and stuff, and you can create literally anything. And that is a power of tabletop RPGs, especially because when you're with a group, you can do literally anything. But that's what solo RPGs can do too. Is like you are limited only by what you got in here, and everybody, we always try to encourage everybody. Like you are creative, you are able to do anything you want to do, so go do it, and don't feel like you have to play a video game and be on the rails. Like do anything you want.
There was
Two
one other.
things.
Oh, go ahead.
We got to acknowledge when people give us money, we got to pay attention. Even though Brian's
Sure.
like, we'll save that for later. Sorry, super chats are paid for a reason, Brian. We got to talk to them. Sorry, but I want to thank From the Hilt for throwing down the 5 memberships you just did. Thank you so much. And yes, Brian, we'll get to Thagan's question when we get to that point that you want to get to. But traditionally, I do prefer that when a super chat comes up, we address it ASAP because they're paying for the privilege and it's important. It is.
Okay.
Sorry. But Jim, you need to take a bow. And the bow you need to take is that everything you have done with Star Trek Adventures, and I am putting this squarely on your shoulders because your name's at the top of the list always, you have managed to really create something special, something that has resonated to a lot of Trekkers, a lot of Trek gamers. I've seen FASA people rave about it. I've seen Lug Trek people rave about it. I've seen Decipher, Coda Trek people rave about it. And,
Wow.
I've even seen some Prime Directive people talk about it. It's a hit. And the key that made it a hit was you have the basic 2D20 system that no one thought would work for Star Trek. Everyone said, nah, this will never work for Star Trek. It's Conan. It's this, it's that. And yet it's working. And it works well. Now, when we play our game, these two can attest, and Patrick plays in one game with me as well, so he can attest. Yeah. I ignore 50% of the rules. I don't care. Okay, 75. I want to just roll 220 and tell me how many successes you have. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to get into, well, let's roll your con challenge dice and how many. I don't care. That bogs it down. Let's keep going. The action's got to go.
Yeah.
And unlike the other games, you can do that. With Star Trek Adventures, you can, unlike every other game that has these endless, exhaustive skill lists and this and that. This game just hums, it just clicks, it just moves really well along. So I really got to say, man, you guys did something special. You deserve to take a bow.
Oh well, thank you. I can't take the credit for most of that, unfortunately. But you got to put a lot of that on Nathan Dowdell's shoulders. So Nathan Dowdell is the 2D20 system designer over at Modiphius. Yeah. And he has been doing a fabulous job of taking the core 2D20 system and adapting it to Infinity, to Conan, to Dune, to Star Trek, to Fallout, all this different stuff. And it's like the same core system, right? But they're able to add so many different things and elements. It's awesome. And like, I mean, now, Modiphius started the 2D20 World Builder program, right, where they have the basic like SRD of the 2D20 system, and now there's designers out there like Troy Mepians and Al Spader who are like creating their own things with the 2D20 system, right, but they're doing different stuff with it, and it's so cool to see. But I am grateful that Nathan did such a great job with Star Trek Adventures, because it feels, I mean, really feels like Star Trek. I remember doing the playtest back in 2016, right? I read it, and like I will admit, when I read the playtest document, I was a little resistant, and it was to what you were saying, Bear. It's like there's so many subsystems and meta currencies and stuff in here. Like, just I want to strip all that out and just do the basic core mechanic and get playing with my group. And then gradually we added in some of the subsystems to taste. We added in threat, we added in momentum, we added in determination. But that's the power, I think, of the game system, and especially now that I've had all these writers helping me expand the line and expand the mechanical scope of it, to where we added the player's guide and the game master guide and a whole bunch of optional rules that Nathan created by virtue of him working on all the other 2D20 system games. He was able to pull in the cool rules, the cool ideas into Star Trek and adapted them and changed them. So now, like a group, you can get as crunchy or as light as you want with this system. Just play with the dials. And like what you're saying, Barry, like just strip a lot of it away, just go with the core mechanic 2D20, and just go get the snappy narrative going. You totally do that. And then a different group, if they want to go more into the weeds, kind of right with all the details, pile it on. It's all there. So it's really become this like massive toolkit to tweak to your taste. And I think some people I know love that, but I also know that there are gamers out there who are who really want everything codified, right? They want to know exactly how you can do a thing, how you can do a thing. And I think some of them struggle with the flexibility. They're like, It's like, oh no, you can just do whatever you want. But what do the rules say? No, do what you want. It's okay.
Yeah.
And
That is what the rules
it's a different
say.
mindset. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Country,
Cody.
what was that?
I was
Cody
saying that is what the rules say. Do
Yeah.
what you want.
Make it up. Right.
Cody, I've been dominating. Brian's been getting in, but you've said nothing. Well, let Cody have the floor for a minute to ask a couple of questions. Since, he does play the most popular character out of all 3 live streams, Dr. Deb Taylor.
Yeah, when's the Romulan source book coming out? No, I'm just kidding. No, seriously. I had a question.
Hold on, Michael. What was
Nice.
Okay, apparently we're not getting anything out of that. All right.
No, I had
Sorry, I signed contracts with these people. I want to keep working.
That's fair.
On point.
I kind of had a question since we were talking about the 2D20 system, how difficult it was to adapt Star Trek to the 2D20 system.
That's a great question. I think that would be, if Nathan were here, he would be able to feel that far better than I think any of us. But I think, I mean, if I'd have to go take the Wayback Machine to 2016, and Patrick, I know you were there from the beginning too, so I'd have to remember.
Yeah.
Like by the time I got into Modiphius, they already had the alpha draft of the core pretty well set up, and they were soliciting feedback on some of that stuff. But I think like most of it was pretty well in place, because I think the 2D20 it already, like, momentum, threat, and 2D20 are like the core, components of it, and then you usually got 6 attributes, 6 skills, or in our cases, disciplines. So like the basic structure was already there, right? And then what Nathan was able to do was kind of like really hyper focus it so that the game had the scene economy, right? Because of course Star Trek is at its core is a television show, right? And that is structured in acts and scenes. And so if you go into the game with that mentality, okay, we're going to do a scene, you do your tasks, and then you get to a dramatically appropriate point in that scene, and you cut scene and you go to the next scene. And if the players understand that rhythm, you get into it, and the game just follows you right along, because the momentum comes and goes, the threat comes and goes, and then then all of a sudden you're in the middle of a Star Trek episode, and it's like, how did that happen? We're playing a Star Trek episode. This is great. And you're just riffing back and forth off of each other.
I'm not even remotely joking when I say this. It's one of my favorite games to run of the last 10 years. Like, it really is. I really enjoy running it. It's easy to run. I don't have to do a lot of prep work as the narrator. I can just jump into and go. I would die for something that Amarillo had in one of their things, which was a random mission generator, which was just like they had location, threat, asset, and you just rolled for each one and put together a mission for the team. I'm just saying, bug in your ear, something like that would make the GM's job even easier.
Captain's log has that.
I don't have Captain's log.
It's all in the back. There's like 80 tables in the back of Captain's log.
I don't need 80 tables. I need a copy of it, which sadly apparently it's on back order, but I'll get it when it comes out. When they send me one, I'll read it. And
have we sent you the PDF? We can send you a PDF in the meantime, sir.
I have the PDF. I do have the PDF, but again, I hate PDFs. I'm a book guy.
Understood.
Clearly. But the point being is that I know you said Nathan did all the writing on it and Nathan did the games, but it doesn't matter, because you're running the line and you're making sure the new products coming out are still beneficial to everyone. And they have been. I've read. Okay. This damn thing.
Yes.
This thing. I
Love it.
hated, with the fiery passion of the Antares Nebula, the show when it came out. I couldn't stand it. I was like, what is this garbage? And then this jerk is like, I don't know, Bear. I've been watching it. It's pretty good. You should watch it, Bear. I don't know. You should watch it. So I was like, fine, I'll watch it. And then somewhere around the middle of season 2, I was like, oh, they've stopped trying to be Rick and Morty. Oh, they're actually telling something interesting. And so when I got that copy of the book, I was like, all right, let me read it. And I was like, God damn, this is useful.
And I want to jump in on the Lower Deck book, the Lower Decks book. Man, words are hard. It was really interesting because okay, so you're dealing with a comedy show, and you're going into the book, and okay, they're just going to be cracking jokes all the time, which there are, which I appreciate, but it still actually treated it like a serious Star Trek property.
Yeah.
And what I actually like was the hidden episode, is what I call it, where you see all the comments from the different characters. And it's just like, oh, if you piece this all together, no, this is an episode of Lower Decks that has been snuck in here. And I really, really liked how that book was put together. Just I think it speaks to the strength of the design team, that they can take even a comedy property and make it useful and relevant. So
now, Michael, how much writing did you do on this bad boy?
That may put me in like the 30 to 40% rate on that one, right, Jim? I think
Yes,
on that one.
that.
I had a lot. I did a lot with in my normal day job.
Yeah,
I work in people and culture, and so HR, organizational development. And if you'll look at all the sections on the HR and career pathing and all those additional jobs
that makes so much more sense right now.
I poured myself into how do you start as an ensign and work your way up into senior staff. So I did a lot of the chapter, about 30 to 40%, and also the one on second contact. It had never been explored anywhere in writing. When I looked all over the place, there were no protocols. So I made up General Order 3. I know there's a General Order 3 out there somewhere in beta canon, but I really expanded on General Order 3 as the official book on second contact. And so I went there. So Jim gave me a lot of leeway. I have to say that how I got involved with it is always my favorite story. I get so many kickbacks on stuff I gave to Jim over the years. He's like, humor is subjective. Humor is subjective. Humor is subjective. I got so many rejections on pitches because of that. And then all of a sudden one day, Jim sends me an email or a text, and he's like, so you want to work on Lower Decks? And I went, wait a second, can I be funny? And he's like, go for it. And I was like, yes! And then what made me even happier, part 2 of that story, is I sent stuff in, and then Mike McMahon had kicked it back to Jim Johnson saying, not funny enough. I was like, oh, now I can get dark. And then that's where all the badgy stuff comes in. And so I was really happy that I could, that was one of my favorite books to work on. You asked me about favorites. I have favorites for different reasons, but Lower Decks was definitely my personality, 100%.
Well, I think Second Contact was a great idea that Lower Decks brought into the canon. I think that's a really neat idea, because it always addresses that question of, yeah, but what happened to that planet after Picard left, or after Kirk left, or whatever the case may be? So it's a really great idea for a campaign for someone who wants to revisit classic Trek stuff. They can do pick their favorite TNG episodes, pick their favorite TOS episodes, whatever you want to do in that case. But having you codify it in such a excellent way was really interesting to read. It was like, just like, damn, son. Like, now you tell me you're HR, I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. You know, that makes me it'd be like me writing a security manual. It'd be like, oh yeah, we get that.
Yeah, the most boring job at any company just became the most exciting Star Trek book. I don't know.
Well, I'm still a tactical security guy myself, but I'll give you this one today.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lower Decks was an exciting book to work on, because I knew I wanted to be a little subversive with it, right? Because like I knew a lot of people would look at the cover and they'd be like, "Oh, okay, this is about the animated show. Okay, I can skip that." But we packed in so much stuff in there about like how to run a Lower Decks campaign, and I know that I remember telling the writers, "Look, don't just think about Lower Decks the series. Think about that episode of Lower Decks on Next Gen, right? That serious, hardcore episode where." You know, you're dealing with some really serious stuff with cadets at the academy, and then also think about the episodes on Voyager where Tuvok was responsible for mentoring a bunch of lower deck officers. And I was like, that's what we want to bring into STA, because I mean, we knew, because we all spent a lot of time on social media with the game and the players, that a lot of newer Star Trek fans are not that familiar with the 50 odd years of stuff, right? They just know Lower Decks. They may know Picard a little bit. They may know some Voyager, and because they don't have that familiarity with the franchise, they're comfortable playing junior officers because they want to kind of like get the ropes and learn it, and they don't want a lot of responsibility. Everyone's afraid of playing the captain, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, oh gosh, what a great opportunity to give them like the full blown manual how to play a lower decks officer, and not just play lower decks officer, but start thinking about your career path. Think about how you're gonna be promoted. You might become a lieutenant, and then you might have responsibility. What do you do then? Now you're a leader. You may not want to play the captain, but now you're gonna play a department head or a junior department head or something. You're still gonna have responsibility because the game master is gonna say, oh, hey, you didn't want to play a leader, but guess what? You're the department head of science, and your junior officer is coming up to you with a problem. They're having a interpersonal difficulty with another person on another department, and now you got that whole HR angle, like what Michael was saying, and that's just great drama, right?
Jim didn't even mention.
Please don't
Right.
give the Sojourner players ideas, because the
But
last
Jim
thing I
didn't
need is
even-
them all running into Bunny with HR complaints against each other.
Oh, we do that. On my ship, we have HR complaints. We do that.
Oh, Bunny, Dungeon Damsel. This
Yeah.
apparently is going to be the future of the campaign for you. It's going to be Chuck coming to you going, oh, the captain calls me Chuck.
Jim didn't even mention his favorite part of the Lower Decks campaign and how he fulfilled one big wish. Jim, you got to tell him the best part of the book for you. You had a
We're
wish
listening.
fulfilled.
Oh well, I mean, are you talking about the pack leads? Yeah. So I mean, even from the when I started with Star Trek Adventures, I was just I shouldn't say just. I was originally hired to be a freelance writer, so I did some writing on the core book. I wrote the introduction and a bunch of sidebars and some other bits and pieces before I rapidly got involved in editing the first adventure supplement. But one of the sidebars I wrote was, well, what if the first Alpha Quadrant species to really seriously start exploring the Gamma Quadrant once the wormhole was explored? What if the first species into that was the Packleds? Wouldn't that be kind of fun and goofy? Because, you know, the Packleds, of course, were this kind of malign species from one episode of Next Gen, and then you see them in the background of DS9. But so I wrote that sidebar, and I was like, hee, that was fun. And then, you know, on rare occasions when I had an opportunity, I would just kind of like drop in Packled stuff into some of the other supplements. And then, you know, Modiphius gave me more and more responsibility, and then they made me project manager. And I was like, okay, now we can do some fun stuff. So the Gamma Quadrant book has I wrote an art brief, and one of the pieces of art in the Gamma Quadrant book is that pack-led captain on a ship encountering a Vorta and some Jem'Hadar. Right? So that was fun. And then for the Lower Decks book, and then then Lower Decks came out. Right. And I had no idea what was going to happen in Lower Decks. And then like the episode came on with the Packleds in it. And a couple of my friends texted me and said, oh my God, have you seen the new Lower Decks episode? You have to go watch it, because they knew I had this thing for Packleds. And I was like, no, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. What's going on? Then I watched it and it's like, oh, they're making the Packleds the big bad guy for the late Next Gen era. Oh, what are we going to do with this? And so, you know, once we got the license to do Lower Decks, all bets were off. I was like, this is going to be the Pack-led source book. Right. So Aaron Pollier and Michael and Al and some of the other writers, they put together a bunch of NPCs and ships and the whole lore and storyline for the Pack-leds. And I'm very happy that we got Pack-leds into the game in a big way.
I have a question for Patrick, since you've just been sitting there nodding a lot. Tell us about what you've been doing for this game and what you've been writing. Come on, man.
I'll say the stuff that I can discuss. I started like Jim. They brought me on as a freelance writer. I wrote a bunch of sidebars in the core book, and then they made the decision. Okay, we're going to. At first, they weren't going to do the iconic characters pretty much at all, because Chris Birch was very firm on, you know, this is about your heroes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the decision got made, oh, well, we're going to do these after all. And they said, do you want to write some of these characters? Sure. When do I start? So I said, well, okay, here's, would you do you're kind of the ones who have volunteered to work on these characters. You're the kind of the 23rd century expert. So why don't you write the TOS characters? So no pressure at all. And then they said, well, we also need somebody to write Enterprise. And no one else stuck their hand up. So I wound up doing that. And I kind of wound up being, you know, the character guy for a while. When the Klingon book came out, Jim got me, hey, I've got a quick, you know, rush, you know, real quick turnaround. I need I need some thing on NPCs written up. I said, okay, yeah, I can do that. I've got time on my schedule. And he sends me the list of NPCs he wants written up. And it's like, oh, because it was Kang, Kor, and Koloth.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. So that has kind of became my niche. I mean, I've done a lot of characters. I've done some mission briefs in a couple of the books. When Shackleton came out, I did some NPCs and a couple of mission briefs in there, and then but the stuff that I can't discuss in detail, it's characters all the way down.
But that's good. I mean, it's a great niche to have, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I do.
Well, I got to compliment Patrick too, because he changed how I write characters. When I had the privilege of working with him on Picard season 1, I think we worked on together.
That was fun.
and hearing how he builds the character, because that was actually my first time working on characters. Actually, that was definitely my first time working on any kind of character pack. And I remember we talked about it, and the way you build characters made me have to go back and watch the show all over again and really figure it out, because I'm big about focuses. And you came, I just, it sticks in my mind how you designed Raffi Musiker in Picard package and the story behind that. And now every time I go to any kind of design, I think about your methodology. It's really good. So people realize a lot of work goes into putting those stats together to make them heartfelt, and I think Patrick really leads the charge on that.
I would agree. I would 100% agree on that.
So
yeah, I think
what is
Patrick? Actually, I'm curious, Patrick. How much time do you spend watching episodes to find just the right piece of dialogue to turn into a value?
Oh gosh. Usually by the time we get to that point, I mean, for Picard, it was like, okay, I probably watched the whole season through a couple of times, and then I started to, say, okay, I'm working on Picard, and I'm working on Narek, and I'm working on Raffi, and I'm working on Elnor. So then I go and start taking notes on dialogue once I figure out in my head kind of where I think their strengths lie, what their actual focus is. We've said it before, and I hear you say it a lot on conversations. Listen to what the characters are saying. They'll tell you what their values are.
Yeah.
And
as long as the writing is consistent.
Yeah, sometimes you have to tweak things a little bit, because whether we liked it or not, there was some language in language in Disco and in Picard that, well, I myself, I've got quite the potty mouth, but I've also got 3 kids. I try not to do it in front of them. And Trek is one of the things that I share with the kids. So it's like, okay, well, so every now and then I have to tweak things to keep the language clean, but
sheer freaking hubris.
Indeed.
I got a note from Patrick for the campaign. I gave him a note about his background having the word shit in it a bit too much. He's like, well, you've dropped some MF bombs on the live stream. I'm like, oh God, I feel like my dad's talking to me. What's going on?
That's the dad coming out. Actually, I do this with my kids, and so I try not to swear in front of them. But to answer Jim's question, I'll probably watch specific pieces of I'll watch the whole series over again, then I'll probably watch specific pieces of episodes that I know focus on that character, and it's like, okay, that's the one, that's it right there.
That makes sense.
Raffi was a little bit different just because I identified with her so much. Because I think I mentioned
I want to know why.
I'm an alcoholic.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
and it's like, okay, we talk all the time about representation in Star Trek and how and people are looking at me like, Patrick, you're a cishet, middle-aged white dude. You're all over Star Trek. It's like, yeah, but I'm also a drunk, and she's the first one.
Yeah, well, Scotty, but
Yeah, Scott, I was gonna say.
I don't know. He was considered functional, right?
That was
So-
cultural.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, third Scottish here. Step back, Mormon boy.
Non sequitur, Patrick. Have you been reading Una McCormick's Second Self? Big.
I have not yet.
Oh,
I've got a big pile of to read, and
I'm halfway through it.
Una stuff is in there, and
Yeah.
I've heard some really nice things about it.
Making me
Nice.
really fall in love even more with Musakar as a character. Really well.
But it's like, she's sitting there arguing with, the first episode she really shows up. She's sitting there arguing with Picard, and hitting the pipe. And it's like, I used to do that. I mean, mine was Crown and Coke, but
All right, let's lighten the mood.
absolutely.
Let's bring it back up. I'm going to ask the question that you knew I was going to ask, and it's going to be a 3-piece question.
Oh.
Favorite era, favorite character, favorite episode. And we'll start with Mr. Dismuke.
Favorite era. Ooh, I'm gonna have to go movie era because I'm so curious about it. I love the turtlenecks. I have a whole story about why they had to do turtlenecks. The evolution of the uniform. I have an entire private story about that. So movie era. My favorite movie of all time is Undiscovered Country. That really hit me. How well you can take a social issue, political issue, encapsulate it in a Star Trek story. I mean, they struck gold on every angle in that movie to me. So movie era is my favorite era. Favorite character is 7 of 9. You can always go to continuing missions and look at my dissertation on why I believe she's the next Spock. When it comes to Crux character, yes, I know I saw that side eye, but believe me, go read it.
Don't recall Spock vaporizing a madam at any point.
Hey, evolution of a character. We have shows about that you can watch. Be happy to come back and talk about it for an hour. And then the third question, what did you say?
Favorite episode.
Ooh, the minute you say that, the one that pops in my mind every time is Inner Light. So I'm a Voyager series person. I am one of the few Voyager fanatics out there. Watched it 20 times over. But Inner Light to me is the perfect example of a story that wraps you in. There's no phasers, there's no photon torpedoes. It is just great storytelling and character development. In love with that entire story, including the sequel where he played flute in while she played the piano, the archaeologist he was romantically involved with. I think that to me is Star Trek at its genius.
Have you ever seen the YouTube video where they show Picard playing the flute while everything else is happening, and like they keep and they just cut back to him playing, but they're doing like bad recorder music over it.
Send that to me, please.
Absolutely hilarious. I'll throw it to you later. Okay, Jim, same question. Favorite era, favorite character, favorite episode.
Man, these are brutal questions. And only by virtue of the fact that Star Trek is very, very, very voluminous in terms of great characters, great episodes, great eras to play in, right? For the longest time, like in the 80s and the 90s, when I was doing a lot of RPGing, game mastering, and playing, I think the post Dominion War era was the most exciting for me, right? Because it was just like, we can get back to science, we can do all this cool stuff. We've got the war that has just happened, so a lot of player characters could kind of have that in their backstory, right? We were scientists, we got pushed into the war, and now it's back to peacetime. What did that do to your character, right? Like, how did that change your character's perspective, where they were joining the primarily scientific organization, pushed into war, but now they're back to science. Like, can they go back? Like, can some characters go back to that, or are they stuck? Or not stuck, but are they going to just be different? And then, of course, Discovery kind of explored that a little bit when Discovery came out and the Federation Klingon War happened. But anyway, so I think I've been gravitating more toward like Enterprise, early Federation, like between Enterprise and I guess the first season of Discovery, like that early 23rd century stuff is like where everything was new. The Federation was kind of coming together. They were grabbing new members left and right. The Klingons were coming up, and there's like that butting of heads between the two. The Romulans were kind of like mysterious in the background. I think that whole period of time is ripe for RPGing, because it's stuff that is a little different, and everything's possible, right? Like, it's just wide open. You're on ships that can go like warp 6 at best. So like if you're out there on the frontier, you are really on your own. Like, I mean, it's one thing to be a Constitution class ship in the original series, but like, you know, you got an NX or an NX refit or something. You know, you're really kind of on your own, and you need to rely on your crew's ingenuity to keep yourself together. So I think that's been my most interesting era lately. That's really been appealing to me, other than, of course, like, you know, post Dominion War. Although at this point, with Lower Decks and Picard having come out, that's starting, that period of time is starting to be filled in a little bit. It's not quite as exciting to me anymore, because it's like, oh well, okay, they're doing that now and they're doing that now. So I'm looking for something fresh. I do still love the Lost era, right? The movie era, like 2290s to right before Next Gen. That's another chunk of time that just hasn't really been explored yet. You know, canonically anyway. There's some great novels out there for that. So I would love to explore that in more detail as well. But for now, I say like that post Enterprise, between Enterprise and Discovery, early 22nd century kind of stuff, where the Federation
era,
like the growth of the Federation would be really cool to explore. Like, because you could do exploration type stuff, right? But you can get the whole political angle into it, right? You can bring a lot of the politics and the diplomacy and the negotiations, and like, oh, can we bring this species into the fold? Do they want to join? Do they want to be a protectorate? Maybe they don't want to join, right? So there's just a wealth of stuff to do there that we haven't seen in detail in other series yet, I think.
Okay.
Character. I mean, you know, a few years ago, I would have said, yeah, Sisko, Captain Sisko, no doubt. I think he's one of the most well-rounded characters in the entire franchise. But the more I think about it, and as time goes on, and as I get older, I'm frustrated that we didn't hear the rest of his story, canonically anyway. Like Derek Tyler Attico, good friend of mine, writer, he just recently wrote the autobiography of Benjamin Sisko, which adds just a wealth of detail to the character, which is awesome. But I want to know what happens next to Sisko. Like, does he come back from the Prophets? Why does he come back? How does he come back? And I think without knowing how it ends, I can't really latch on to him as my favorite ever character, right? I mean, I think I love everything that he did, and I love Avery Brooks's portrayal of him. But for now, I think, especially because I've been watching a lot of Discovery, and of course, you know, enjoying Strange New Worlds, now that it's you know, in its second season and heading into season 3 here, I have to admit that Pike is really growing on me. I think Pike is an amazing character, especially right now. I'm in the middle of a rewatch of season 2 again, because I love season 2 of Discovery so much, and I'm picking up nuances that I didn't catch before about Pike, where he really had a chip on his shoulder, missing out on the war, right? And he took a lot of risks in season 2 that maybe he wouldn't have needed to if he didn't feel like he had something to prove. And like you know, one of the characters, Ash, called him out on it a couple times, and he was like, "No, I wasn't doing it. I wasn't doing that." And it's like, "Oh yeah, okay, I was totally doing that." But I just love the complications or the complexity that they're adding to the character. Where like he is the exemplar of Star Trek, which is why they kept him off the front lines. But now he's kind of like having to realize that, and wants to, you know, make a name for himself. So I think there's some really fascinating nuances to Pike that I want to see them explore, especially because he knows his future, right? He knows what's going to happen to him, but he's still doing his thing, right? And like I think about myself, I'm like, could I do that? I don't know. I don't know that I have the strength of will and fortitude to be like, okay, I know my future really, really sucks, but I'm going to keep doing this thing anyway. You know, I'm not going to just give up and go sit down somewhere. And so I think I'm leaning toward Pike more and more now as my favorite character. Okay. And I think a big piece of that's Anson Mount. Like, he's such an amazing actor, and he's doing everything with all the material that they're giving him. So I'm just excited to see what happens next. And then as far as episode, I mean, you're talking 1,000 episodes, and how do you pick one? How do you pick one, man? I'm going to go with The Visitor, DS9, The Visitor, the story of Jake Sisko and Ben Sisko, and that relationship between father and son. So powerful, amazing episode. I mean, there's so many other good ones to pick from, right? Especially some great Pike episodes that I'm really enjoying. But I think The Visitor really resonated with me when it first came out. And then when I became a father, and then I watched it again, it hit me in a whole different way. And so I got to see it in a couple different directions. And I think that's just a really special episode to me. So it's just fascinating to watch.
All right, Patrick, favorite era, favorite character, favorite episode.
My favorite are probably still the movies, the original cast films. But as time has gone, as I've brought my kids into it, I've really started getting into the 24th century. I turned the background off for a reason, so I could hold up the Prodigy box set.
Prodigy's very good, man. Prodigy's very good.
So I'm really starting to get into that later 24th century. I was like I say, I was one of those argumentative ones that kind of fought against the whole 24th century thing when TNG first came out. It's taken a long time to grow on me, but the movies are still my favorite era, just because I think there's what you're seeing what's happening to the Enterprise over here, but there's all this other stuff that they gone further into implying is going on out there. You get to see it now. The council chamber scene. You get to see all these different species in the council chamber at the end of Star Trek 4, but it is the implications of all this other stuff that was out there, and you're seeing all these other starships.
Yeah,
and it wasn't all just the Enterprise.
Yeah,
much as I love the Enterprise, but
she doesn't have a bad angle. Let's be honest.
She's the
really only. She's the Connie refit is the only ship ever put on screen that does not have a bad angle. Every other ship, there's one angle you'll see where you just go, ugh, what the hell is that? Like the Excelsior has the worst. She looks like a guppy from the front. You just go, oh, what is that belly?
Yeah.
Ooh. But the Connie refit, oh, not a bad angle.
I don't know. I love my Miranda class.
Yeah. Miranda's my favorite, but even she has a couple of bad angles. But Connie, she's a work of art. Anyway, all right. So movie era, favorite character.
All these years later, it's still Spock. I mean, there's been a lot of competition. Like Jim, I really started when Pike first showed up on Disco season 2. It's like, okay, I think he's a fantastic character. But it always seems to, for me, to come back to Spock.
Okay.
Also, I also always thought Sulu had the coolest job. Kirk was giving the orders, and Spock was doing his sciencey stuff, and Scotty was down in the engine room shoveling coal, but Sulu got to drive the Enterprise.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, there we go. So,
yeah, but so did Wesley. No,
okay, Brian, you're not allowed to talk anymore. Shut up, Wesley. All right, and favorite episode?
For a long time, it was Arena.
Ooh.
That's the first episode I ever remember seeing with my with my dad was Arena, and they didn't show him any kind of order. So I mean, the next within a couple of weeks, though, they had showed us Balance of Terror, and so for a long time, it was a tie with those two, but right now it's Balance of Terror just because of what they did at the end of Strange New World Season 1 with the Quality of Mercy, showing us what happens if Pike tries to escape his fate. It's like, oh, here's a whole new angle on everything. So it just falls back to Balance of Terror.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I mean, you've got Shatner and Mark Leonard playing off of each other. You got these two, super sharp starship commanders facing off against each other, trying to outmaneuver each other, and both of them are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to keep a war from happening. It's just one of them. One of them has got people in the background going, "Oh no, we need the war to start for the glory of the Praetor."
Yeah, I agree. Seraphis, shut up, Australian Wesley. Okay, Brian, I hand the reins back to you for a while, or Cody, whoever wants them. I've gotten all the answers of every question I had in my head today, and I'm just sitting here and smile and shut up.
Cody, did you want to throw anything out?
I really don't have many questions. I'm like the most casual Star Trek fan in the world. Like I do love Star Trek, but like I'm very casual about it. Like I grew up watching the original series and Next Generation in the movies and stuff, but like I am not near as knowledgeable as Bear or a lot of these guys about Star Trek. Like, you know, I could probably tell you more about the original series or whatever. As far as the role-playing games go, did you guys take any inspiration from the previous role-playing games when you were designing the 2D20 system?
As far as the actual design, I have to believe that Nathan probably did take some inspiration, or at least reread them. Like I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle of cleaning my office, such as it is, and I pulled down all the old FOSSA books off my shelf and was flipping through them, and I had forgotten that the FOSSA system had a life path in it. And I looked through that life path and I was like, oh, you know, this isn't really all that different from the life path that we have in STA. I mean, just like, you know, conceptually, and, you know, Last Unicorn Games, they had a life path in their icon system, and Decipher didn't, actually, if I remember right. I don't think Decipher had
not so much. No.
Yeah, not so much. But FOSSA certainly did, and Last Unicorn Games certainly did, and Nathan just built on that, you know, using 2D20 as the core as opposed to the other systems. But so I would say, you know, without putting words into his mouth, I would say Nathan probably did at least, you know, took some spiritual inspiration from the games that have come before us. And then for me as a writer, but also as as a project manager, and also as the, you know, like when I outline books, I've got all the FOSSA stuff, I've got all the Last Unicorn stuff, I've got all the Decipher stuff. I'm constantly looking at that stuff, looking at little things that they did, things that they explored, things that they added detail to that we tend to avoid, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to start making up stuff whole cloth and throwing it in there. What we've decided to do with the STA is to really like present canon as we see it, add that RPG overlay to it so that you can do stuff with it, and then add some color to the edges, right? But then present stuff that hasn't been presented in an RPG before, like, you know, Michael was saying with the HR guidebook, which the Lower Decks book became. It's like you haven't really seen that in an RPG before for Star Trek, to go into that level of detail about, you know, career pathing. Here's your Lower Decks officer, how to play a Lower Decks officer. But I'm constantly referencing the older RPGs. And you know, Michael and I joke about this, and I have to think that somewhere in the distant future, when another company gets the license to do a Star Trek RPG, you know, down the whatever that looks like, I have no idea. You know, maybe they'll look at our stuff and say, oh, we'll use your stuff as inspiration, along with Last Unicorn Games and FOSSA and Decipher and so on and so forth. The challenge there, of course, will be like the farther into the timeline we go, the harder it's going to be to find the older stuff, right? Like, I mean, already FOSSA stuff is getting harder to find. Decipher not so much, and then Last Unicorn Games is still pretty easy to get to. And then of course there's our stuff, but I certainly draw a lot of inspiration. Michael, Patrick, you know, what's your you guys pull on the classic stuff as well?
Oh yeah. I don't have all the FASA stuff. I used to have all the FASA and used to have all the Last Unicorn. A lot of the FASA stuff got lost in a fire, and I just never got around to replacing it. Some of the Last Unicorn stuff, I think it got loaned out and never returned. I'm trying to remember where some of it went, but I've got the stuff that I need. You know, I've got my Romulan box set here that I was referring to a lot, especially when I was working on that Picard Season 1 pack, even though none of it was ever really, you know, canonical. So, okay, you've got descriptions of some of the Romulan background, some of the stuff you can use for the background material, especially when you're, you know, not given a whole lot of information on some of them.
And for me, as of yet, not at all. I didn't play any other games, and actually, when I was asked by Jim to start writing stuff, I purposely did not do that because I was so afraid that I was going to recreate, or it was going to get in my head and would get stuck in there. The fact that Patrick just mentioned Romulans is a really good case in point. They're the most secretive, most mysterious species in canon so far, and I really wanted to make it so that new players to the game, if all they had ever watched was Picard, for instance, that they could choose how to make the species for themselves. And so that's the way I approach it in our game. Our captain is a Romulan. He's the first Starfleet captain who's a full-blooded Romulan in our campaign. And the world that's been created by the player is fascinatingly labyrinth-like. And so for myself, I never look back at those old materials. And I think it's kind of serviced me well. And again, I'm surrounded by people like Jim, Patrick, Aaron, Paul Ye, John Kennedy, and who they cover it. Believe me, they're not going to let me miss a beat. if I screw something up, it ain't flying past editing,
Oh yeah, no worries there. But I think Cody, one of the things I do love to do, and I think the fans have really responded positively to this, is we do have the ability to drop in Easter eggs all the time, right? So like I love pulling out references to the fastest stuff and the lug stuff and finding just little places in our books to drop it in. Just one example is the Klingon core book that we did. I made it a point of adding the triangle into the map and then referenced a couple of the worlds in a couple of the mission briefs in the Klingon book, because I knew there would be a classic gamer out there who would pick up on that and get excited about it. And Bear, I see you, you're rolling your hands there, and so it's just little stuff like that, right? Just like we are carrying the torch of Star Trek RPGs forward to the next generation, and it's important, I think, to us to honor who's come before and set the stage for whoever's going to come after, like whatever that looks like. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about that. We still got lots of cool stuff to do. But I think I love, as a gamer, I love those kind of Easter eggs when I can see them. And we're in a place now that we know writers, we know novelists, we know comic book writers, we know video game people. There's so many people making Star Trek these days in all kinds of different formats. And we're able to pull in Easter eggs from all that stuff and drop it in. And the fans are starting to see like we're all working together, and that's creating a more cohesive, secondary Star Trek tapestry kind of thing, which is just super cool. And then when you get to Eric Campbell, who ran the Streampunks, right, and did Shield of Tomorrow, like that whole ecosystem kind of thing happened to where their ship, the Ross, right, was started off as an RPG ship, and then got into Star Trek Online, and then became canon because they put it into Star Trek Picard, thanks to Thomas Maroney working with the Paramount people. So it's like this whole connected thing. We're all connected, and it's super cool.
Yeah, we see that with what's his name, ship designer whose stuff showed up in Picard Picard season 3.
Tobias Richter?
Not Tobias Richter, the other guy who's doing models online, and then the new Enterprise is based on his old ship design. What the hell is that guy's name? Oh, it's gonna drive me up the wall. The new Enterprise, the Enterprise G, is based on one of his ships, and he's in
Bill Krause.
Thank you, Bill Krause. Exactly. So stuff like that. It's really cool to see that stuff happening. It's really nice. Now, if you want to make me happy, Jim, and make me a lifelong fan, find a way to work in a reference to the USS Blackheart, and you'll be my hero.
Blackheart.
Go grab your FASA Federation Ship Recognition manual, flip to the channel,
okay,
and read about the Blackheart.
Now we did get the gold. We did get a reference to the Gold Key comics in there, so hopefully you caught that.
I did not. Where was that in?
That's in the
Utopia Planitia, isn't it?
It's it's Utopia Planitia. There's a sidebar at the beginning of Utopia Planitia where Rich Handley was the editor of the Eagle Moss reprints of the comic books, right? Sure. I reached out to him and I asked him to write a sidebar for me referencing the old Gold Key comics, and he made a great Kirk oriented sidebar at the beginning of the Utopia Planitia book. And he brought in, and he made kind of a reference to like how in the Gold Key comics, like a lot of the planets had like really weird names. So he got to play with that a little bit. So
Nice.
we're trying to touch everything here.
Nice.
All right,
Black
you
Heart.
brought up
Black Heart.
Utopia Planitia, so I'm going to do this. This is going to be one of the few complaints.
Oh, okay.
It probably looks better in print, but dear Lord, who made the color choices on that book? It hurts my eyes.
Now I got to go get mine.
Yeah.
You mean the interior or the cover?
Yeah, no, the interior, like the covers. Oh, the cover look like all the covers look great. No, the interior, it's lots of neon green and neon blue, like all
That's
over the
that's
place.
stuff you see in the films, man.
But it
Yeah.
looks spectacular.
I think
in print.
whoever the
Yeah, that's movie era Elcars, Brian. What's wrong with you?
I was gonna say
Yeah.
it probably is a print thing, but oh my gosh, in PDF it is oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I think I'd have to go back and look at who the art director was for Star Trek 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because that's I mean, we wanted to do a movie era themed book, right? And that was it. And so I remember me and the designer of that one.
Yeah,
we spent hours poring over crappy screenshots because unfortunately those movies are 30 plus years old. There are not great archival stuff of those
Sure.
of those displays. So we were pulling a lot of screenshots and like how do we reproduce this? And he came up with the color palette and the design and all that stuff. And I mean, I thought it looked great. But
Yeah,
I'm with you, Jim. I'm with you.
There's some other things too. We had Lee actually who designed this on our show, and there were some things that you could only see on the hard copy that you couldn't even see on the PDF copy that he pointed out Easter eggs during our show. And one was if you get to the ship section and I don't know if it's going to show up here again, but if you flip through the ship section, you actually have it operating as a computer. You'll actually see the sidebar. I don't know if you see on the
little buttons.
Yeah, see they're moving. And there's some things he really designed in it. I thought this was, if you had to ask me, I think this might be the best designed book in my opinion, based off the cover. The covers. I got the TOS one, but I have the TOS cover schematically. But I think that I couldn't believe all the thought he put in here, even references to Genesis, Planet, and stuff. And it was really fun having him on the show. So I guess since I use my hard copy, I don't see what you're seeing, Brian. I'll have to go back and look at it tonight.
I said, it was just the color palette. I'm not complaining about the content, the layout.
Yeah.
But
come on, look how pretty that is. Come on. That's so pretty.
That looks.
Talking about callbacks, hopefully you caught the reference to the Franz Joseph technical manuals, right? Like the original series cover, like that is exactly what we were vibing off of. Like we're not contractually allowed to use any of the stuff from the Franz Joseph estate or the Franz Joseph stuff, but like we took inspiration from that technical manual because I mean that's what I grew up on, right? Is that black and white? There you go, Starship design. Yeah. So we were totally channeling that for some of the design elements.
Yeah, that's totally killer. I mean, these are so fun to look at all day. My nephews look at it too. That I point to them. It's just, and so there's a evolution to get to this that was pointed out. Right. Again, you could look at Lee Woolsey art. That one too. But we have a continuing conversation episode where he breaks it down, so that made me appreciate it.
Are we planning to pull the books off the bookshelf game?
No, we
I know.
We should.
I'll turn around and start yanking stuff. I can do it. Don't push me, Brian. That'll happen.
We'd be here another hour.
Oh yeah, easily. I'll just start looking at all my armadillo stuff for you to look at.
I think the point you made, the point that comes to this, depending on what era, which I like about this, depending on the era you play, and me and Jim had talked about this before, there's enough supplements where you can do a lot of world building. So if you are playing TOS era or movie era, I'm going to be telling people grab Utopia Planitia just for the design elements, and so if you're playing Lower Decks episode, like there's all these different ways to really, in our game, we time travel sometimes between different, eras. So I think one thing I do is when I first get the book, before I even read it, I always look just at the design of it. Then I read it. Then I go back and read it with the design, kind of together, because we're trying to world build here. Jim is always encouraging us to make people so that they can use whatever elements to create their own Star Trek, because we have a lot of younger generation coming in. One of my biggest things I campaign for is getting people who have zero experience with Star Trek that maybe the game will be their first introduction to it.
Yeah.
So can we immerse them in it? And then that entices them to go off and start watching shows. That's really what we're dealing with now, because we live in a different society of learners, and we have got to get the younger teenagers into appreciating Star Trek, and gaming might be the first step into that.
I came into gaming through Facet Trek. I came into Star Trek through Facet Trek. So movie era will always be my favorite era, because that's what was happening when I got into Star Trek. And Facet will always be the Facet universe. Is just, that's in my head always going to be Trek. But I'll tell you this, I wanted to run a movie era game, and I'm running 2380 instead, because it's easier to it's so much easier for players to reference Picard and TNG. And like, when you start talking Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and your players are under the age of 40, they're just kind of like, huh, what? No, that one, I make a replicate a Stradivarius. You can replicate green cubes, buddy. That's about all you're gonna do. It's just, it doesn't work, right? So I think you guys have created a great resource. Absolutely. Clearly there is going to be more of a focus on the more current stuff, as without the specific books, obviously. But yeah, you're right. You did create something where you could play almost every era without much issue, and a lot of resource on it. So again, well done.
Yeah, and that's a balancing act. Although I hope the original series fans are happy with the tricorder set, because we put a lot of work into that one.
First, let me say this is an amazing book.
Yeah,
this is so much fun. This is so much fun. Second, let me say, Brian. Okay. I get a message on Discord one day of a picture of the tricorder set. Hey Bear, I just found this at my local gaming store. Maybe I should pick it up and send it to you. If you want to. I think the shipping will be really expensive. Maybe I can work out something to my friend in Vermont. You can send it to her, whatever. Blah 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 blah. Never another word is said. About a month later, so I bought the Star Trek tricorder set for myself. You son of a bitch. Yeah, Brian. You don't even like TOS.
That's the core rulebook I use, by the way. That to me is comprehensive enough, and you could, it applies to other eras. It's just the rules, but that's actually my favorite core rulebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the challenge. That's the challenge we face with Star Trek at this point, because there's so many series, so many eras. It's like, how do you got to do your best to service all of them. But at the same time, you got to try to make the whole thing cohesive and be universal Star Trek, as opposed to this is Next Gen, this is DS9, this is Voyager, whatever. So it's a tricky balance, but we did want to make sure we give the love to the original series fans. So we poured it all into that tricorder set.
It's no secret to the regular viewers of this show and my channel, I'm not a Discovery fan. I'm not a Strange New Worlds fan. Picard season 3 I liked. The rest of Picard not so much. I came around on Lower Decks because of this joker beside me, and I love Prodigy because I think Prodigy is the show that most captures the spirit of Star Trek and the idea of hope. The idea of hope, which is so a Star Trek thing for me. The idea of the potential to be better, and not wallow in the filth. But that said, I understand you guys as a game design company have to make a wider spectrum of things. Now, would I go pick up the Discovery book? Highly unlikely.
Okay, I get to say my piece on that first.
Go right ahead. I'm 53.
Okay,
your piece will be lost on me, HR.
So one, I agree with you. Discovery, my least favorite show.
What did they do to the Klingons? Seriously.
That I'm not even start. I'm not even start on what it is. But I'm telling you right now, it hurt. It hurted me. It hurt me to watch. See, I can't even speak because of it. It actually was hard for me to very hard for me to digest. But I did not work on the Discovery book. First of all, I want to mention that I did not work on the Discovery campaign guide for Modiphius for Star Trek, but I picked it up because I really liked the art and I knew some of the artists and Jim and stuff like that. I read through it and I went back and watched Discovery. And I was like, oh, I get it now. So unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, Bear, but the RPG got me to go back and watch it with understanding. Yeah. Now, again, I don't need all the Kleenex watching Star Trek with tears. I'm with you on this. Don't read my dissertation on. Well, no, you probably would enjoy my dissertation on Continuing Mission, my blog about it. You probably really like it. But I will say that the RPG got me back to go watch it, and so I do have to give it to to
Yeah,
RPG today.
I just can't stand that show. I'm a big canon fan. Like I'm a huge, I'm a fanon, if you will. And Discovery just plays so loose with the canon that it just hurts me every time. My brain goes, no, because Enterprise did that to me. Enterprise was the exact same thing. He would do something. That's not right. No, I'm one of these people that believes Star Trek should always be about the future, not the past. So every series where they go to the past and they do, I'm just like, no, you're just going to make mistakes. You're going to have the Ferengi show. God, the Romulans have cloaking devices. When, what? No,
Yeah,
that
why
type
were
of
the
thing.
Borg in Enterprise?
Why are the Borg here? What the hell? Like that drives me nuts. Hence why Picard season 3 was really refreshing, because it was not only was it the future, it was touching on the past in a really, really respectful way. Like Terry Matalas clearly loves Star Trek, and that's more than anything for me going to matter the most. So sadly, no, I will not watch Discovery again. I did my time. I watched 3 seasons of that show. It's never happening again. But maybe I'll pick up the book. I got other books to get first.
I was gonna say, like, reading through Lower Decks, like, actually makes me curious about the Discovery book, just because of the fact that how, like I said earlier, I was going into Lower Decks expecting just a book, trying to push a lot of jokes, and instead getting a bunch of good Star Trek information with a flavoring of jokes. And I think I haven't seen it, but my guess would be that I would probably see something similar from the Discovery book.
Yeah,
so
There's a metric crap load of. One of the things that sold me on the book, because I was not. I mean, as much as my Captain's Log game is 32nd century, and I am coming around on some of the later Discovery stuff. I was not a big fan, especially of the first season. But one of the things that convinced me about the book was the fact that there's a huge chapter. I think John Kennedy wrote this. Wasn't he the one that wrote the history chapter, Jim? Michael's saying yes. I'll take him as a subject. But there's this huge chapter that fills in everything that can be found and some reasonable supposition about what happens between the end of Enterprise and the start of the Earth-Romulan War, all the way up to the beginning of Discovery. You get this you get this chunk of lore that has never really been touched on.
That's why I liked it, Patrick, is because whereas Discovery just drops you in, and then between episodes, you don't know how much time has passed and who's where. And, again, my biggest beef, Bear, just so you know, was that after 2 seasons, I couldn't name the bridge crew. Pissed me off, right? So I was just so pissed off that.
You're not alone.
So Discovery, what John Kennedy wrote, to Patrick's point, I was like, thank you. Now I know where it fits. And that's the biggest gift that the Discovery Sourcebook gave to me.
Cool.
Yeah. I think that's just. I mean, Brian, I'll just say, like we mentioned earlier in the show that like Lower Decks kind of, I intended it to be kind of subversive. Like there's more in there than you would expect just by looking at it. And we did the same thing with Discovery. Like they were saying, there's a lot of lore in there tying Enterprise to Discovery to original series. And Discovery also acting as the bridge to Strange New Worlds. Now, a lot of people, really like Strange New Worlds because it is the lead up to original series. Although I see in your chat window some people don't like Strange New Worlds, which is fine. That's great. I think what Discovery and Strange New Worlds are doing with Star Trek, because they're both really serialized in a way that DS9 was starting to do in the 90s and especially in the later seasons, they're able to do some really, really deep character stuff. And as an RPGer, like I said, I'm in the middle of a rewatch of Discovery season 2 right now, and there is so much character drama happening in this season. Like if I was the game master, I would be like, I'd be thrilled, because I would just be piling this on and piling it on and piling it on. And like Michael, I'm surprised that you don't like Discovery more, because like you love piling on stuff. To
I
characters.
do, but I'm sorry. I do believe that if this is a real naval vessel, I don't want to see my captain crying and whispering all the time.
Oh my God! Or in Strange New Worlds, can we please have a little respect for the captain? Everybody on the crew, just a little tiny bit of respect for the captain.
Right?
Everybody talks back to him. Everybody tells him he's wrong all the time. And then they brought in that guy as Kirk. That is no Kirk, sir. That actor is a fine actor, but he is no Jim Kirk.
We're still the Navy. We're still the Navy in space. Is all I gotta say.
Come on, man. Come on. Even Riker had that comment about, you do that again, you pull an end run again on me like that, I'll snap you back like a first-year cadet. Like, I mean, come on. Where's the, it's a little too mushy for me. And that's why I like Prodigy, because Prodigy gets into the Star Trek a lot more. But that's okay. That's the beauty of Star Trek. There's a Star Trek out there for everyone. Exactly. And whether we like it or not, every series is someone's first Star Trek.
Right.
And we have to accept that as a reality. And just remember that
Mariner isn't a bad character.
Mariner sucks. She's a Mercy. IDIC. IDIC. It is the most important thing. No,
Embrace.
Come on. When they put Ceto Jaxa in her background, I'm like, come on, man. Stop. Stop making this everything in Star Trek we know, and every character you ever met in Star Trek loves Mariner. Like, good God. Good God. I mean, I'm just waiting for Ensign Rowe to show up and be like, Mariner, oh my God, I love you so much. Like, Jesus Christ. But that's okay. Well, all right. Before we get into anything else, Brian, I'm going to share something because I had mentioned it and I found it while we were talking. And this is probably just going to be for Michael, but I think everybody else might enjoy it as well.
Okay. Before I share that, really quick, everybody in chat, please put in any specific questions that you have for our guests. Because we've been asking questions, but we do there's been a lot of chat today, and I know I've missed stuff. So basically, I want to kind of concentrate it right here. If you've asked a question previously, I know there's one in the super chat we're going to get to later. But I just wanted to get that out first. And I'm trying to share. Maybe I should just add it to the stage.
A minute 16 of your life that you may or may not appreciate.
Yay.
Last time on Star Trek The Next Generation. Get down! And now the conclusion.
Pause recording. Yes!
Captain, we have less than 2 hours of reserve oxygen.
Computer, pause playback. Casualties reported on deck 26 and 27.
We're making the engine core. I can't shut it down. I estimate 2 minutes to a warp core breach.
The Federation's gone. The Borg is everywhere.
That's what I would be doing.
Yes, this is all very interesting. Number one. Please. You've got to help us.
There you go. Floating danger, I think it's called.
Thank you for that.
All right. So what questions do we have? Well, let's go with the super chat that was paid for a little bit earlier. Yes. And the question is, are we going to see any upcoming Strange New Worlds content, a source book, a character pack, etc., etc.? Can you tell us? That's the other thing.
Yes, obviously with whatever you're allowed to say and not get fired.
yeah, that's the important part. Don't get fired. We can't talk about upcoming products. Yeah, we can't talk about upcoming products, but I can say that every show is its own license, and licensing takes time. It took us almost 3 years to get the Lower Decks license added to our contract. So patience is what I can say.
Okay, so I guess that rules out the Kelvin universe question then. Or
the Kelvin versus its own own legal thing.
Own mess.
Completely different studio, but I mean it's related, but it's a separate license unto itself as well.
Okay. So no upcoming previews, guys. Sorry, that's just the way it's going to be.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess actually a way to put it, is there anything upcoming that you are allowed to talk about?
No, actually, the NDA is pretty solid. I can't talk about upcoming products other than to say in general terms, right? Like I've got what? Gosh, I just had a bunch of stuff greenlit. I think I've got 67 different products on my plate right now in varying stages of development. So it's a ton of stuff, right? And that's a mix of print and digital releases, because I mean we do a steady stream of digital stuff every month. We release something new digitally, whether it's a standalone mission or a mission brief pack. But I've got product for another 2 years that I'm now developing, right? Because there's such a long lead time to make it. Like the stuff that we're working on now isn't going to see the light of day until the end of 25, right? So that's just where we are right now. So yeah, I mean, steady stream of new stuff. I always tell fans, save up your Latinum, save up your Quatlus for you original series fans, because there's just a ton of awesome Star Trek stuff coming that unfortunately I just can't talk about until it happens.
All right, dream project. What would it be for each of you?
Michael or Patrick, why don't you take that first? Give me a second to think.
Oh, sure. Throw it on me. I see how you are. I would love to do something, since right now with the disco coming to an end, I'd love to do something with the 32nd century, because that's where my actual play for my captain's log game is set. So I'd get more information. Barring that, well, I'd be getting, to get back to one of Cody's questions, I've been getting more and more into the Romulans, and if someone had told me 2 years ago that I was going to be pushing for a Romulan book, still, boss, I know it's on the whiteboard, but a lot of things on the whiteboard.
I mean, that's the challenge with Star Trek, right? We have I mean, even after 8 years, there's still big chunks of the franchise that we haven't even touched yet. We haven't touched Romulans. We haven't really touched time travel or alternate universes. We haven't really done a lot with holodecks. We've done some stuff with the Borg, but I mean, there's just like big ticket item stuff that are integral to the franchise that we just haven't gotten to yet. And I think that's just the challenge of only doing 3 or 4 print products a year and having to be really intentional about which ones to do when, right? So I mean, Romulan Sourcebook has been on my wish list from day one. Like back in 2016 when I first got into this as a writer, I made myself a wish list of all the stuff I wanted to work on, much less develop, and that's still one of the ones that hasn't been checked off yet. I would love to be able to nip that one in the bud, but just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Jim and I have had this discussion before.
Yeah.
Michael. I want to you're a fan of Marvel, right?
Big time, yeah.
So a buddy of mine once referred to Canada in the Marvel Universe as the Romulans of the Marvel Universe. They're always doing something sneaky in the woods, and it's always very secretive, and it's always some sort of bizarre weapons project. But there you go.
People don't understand our sense of humor. It's all jokes. I'm going to pass on this question, and the reason why I'm going to pass on it is because I've noticed that STA has a good trend of eventually getting to what everybody wants. We've been, and if we have another 5 years, I think a lot of people are going to get their wishes. And so I don't want to be like, well, you said on this thing that this is what's being produced. But I can tell people, just have faith in the system. There's things that we got to work on and Jim had us work on that I really didn't think we were ever going to get to work on, like a funny book, Lower Decks, whatever it is. But I will say this though. I really much would love one of the books to be catered toward children and teenagers and getting them into the game. Simplified visual video options. I talk about this a lot, an option and a way to play on an app. So I really would love to see gaming companies, and especially I would love to see Modiphius lead the charge, especially since they have the Star Trek franchise, exploring the universe on, okay, I understand longtime fans, we're very particular. We don't want to see change. A lot of people are change averse, but we ain't stopping it. So I'd really love to see Modiphius go the next phase into getting into the hands of where that audience is and what they're looking at and digestible in their brain form. And that's what I want to see next. And I hope to be here for the next 10 years of that.
I would like to make a suggestion because it's already there. and you don't even need a new license for it. Batliths and Bahirs, or whatever the second name was. Jim got it.
The RPG that they were playing in Lower Decks, right?
Yes.
We do have the Klingon core book, right? We have the Klingon subline of stuff, and like when that episode came out, we were like, "Oh man, come on!" And what I thought would be fun, and we just couldn't make it happen. What would have been fun for like an April Fool's thing would be to get that graphic and put it on the digital edition of the Klingon core book, and change the web source, but you just see that and says, so like, oh, you want that Klingon RPG? Well, here it is. Go get it. We just couldn't quite make it work though. But no, that would be fun. And yeah, I totally hear you. I would love to do a STA light geared at kids, and I just don't know what that looks like, because like Modiphius, and this is no knock on Modiphius. Modiphius has not historically done kids games or like kid oriented games for that demographic, and it would require some thought, right? And we'd have to be really, really intentional about who to hire to do it and how to get it right, especially how to get it right.
Instructional designers would be needed.
I have 3 words for you, Jim. Kung Fu Panda.
Board game, not an RPG though. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw something at you, Jim, which is this. The greatest disappointment of Lug Trek for me was Holodeck Adventures.
Oh yeah.
Why? Because I bought it thinking, great, I'm gonna have some adventures where the crew have to deal with holodeck stuff, and it's going no, it was just LARPing in the holodeck. Every adventure was like some LARPing in the holodeck thing. If you ever do holodeck adventures type stuff, please make them actual things that are still Star Trek and are like, oh my God, something's gone wrong with the holodeck, and
Jim, like sentient machines that are actually gravimetric distortions that cast people back to ancient Egypt. You really should do this, bro.
We really should do that. Yeah. We only joke about that because we just recorded our most recent episode of Continuing Conversations, where we are doing an actual play of Captain's Log. And our characters started off the last episode in the holodeck, doing a holodeck thing, effectively LARPing ancient Egypt, and it turned into this big, huge science fiction story of sentient beings and all that stuff. So yeah, absolutely, we would try to do holodeck adventures differently. I don't want to say better, but certainly differently.
More in the vein of what we saw on the show, as opposed to I really want to play D&D and Star Trek.
Right.
Okay,
exactly.
Fair. Cody, come on, you must have a question by this point. Something you want to know.
Well, I guess I should answer the question about dream projects.
No, you lost your chance. No.
Okay,
go ahead, Jim. Go ahead,
Cody.
No, Jim, please.
I will defer.
I insist.
Oh, darn it. Okay, you insist.
I thought I was running the show.
No.
This is a little bit of a tough question because, like, when I mentioned when I first joined the team back in 2016, I wrote down a long list of projects that I wanted Star Trek to work on, partly because, I've been a Star Trek RPG game master and player for 30 odd years, right? Yeah. I know what I want at my table. Right, and Patrick Bear, I know we've talked about this on the RPG Net forums. I know what I want at my table. I know what kind of resources I want at my table, and I want Modiphius to be making these. And over the years, like I've seen us gradually knock these out. We broke the Klingon core book curse, and we got that one out. And we did the Utopia Planitia book, and we did Lower Decks, and we're just doing all this stuff. And I'm like, oh wow, I'm like checking off my dream projects here. What do I do now? What's next? And I think what I've settled on is like, of course, I'm assuming this question is, no holds barred, money, no object, do literally whatever you wanted to do. I would love to do a multi-volume slipcase supplement series on like all things Alpha and Beta Quadrant from the 22nd century all the way out to 30 seconds, like a complete A to Z, everything Star Trek in a way that's got that RPG, focus on it, like you've never seen before. I have, and I know we all have these libraries of amazing nonfiction Star Trek books that are available to us, right? All this great stuff that's come out over the years for Star Trek, and a lot of them, obviously, because they're not oriented for the RPG, don't have that. Like the Lower Decks mentality, right? Like where we're taking concepts that are in the series or assumed in the series, but we're blowing it out so that you can actually use it in an RPG, right? I would love to do that for everything from Enterprise all the way out to Discovery 32nd Century and make it beautiful, not just great artwork and writing on the inside, but like a beautiful slipcase and where all the spines line up and it's just like a really coherent whole massive thing that you could just have, and it's like, oh, this is just like everything Star Trek. And you know, I envision it being like, I don't know, like 1,000 pages worth of hardcovers in this gigantic behemoth of a slipcase. And I would think they would probably have to be sold individually. You know? So that's my dream project, would be to just do the Star Trek RPG, you know, all things like taking all of Okuda's encyclopedias and Sternbach's encyclopedias and like everything good on Memory Alpha and Beta and Gamma, and like all that with the RPG being the forefront focus of like, here's how to take all this great Star Trek stuff and bring it to your table as just this massive toolkit. That's my dream project. It'll never happen, but I can dream.
Well, shut up and take my money.
There you go. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
It would be incredibly expensive to make, and it would have to be even more incredibly expensive to purchase because that's just the scale of reality. But that, you know, if you ask me what my dream project is, that would be it.
Speaking of incredibly expensive to make and purchase, will we ever see the Borg cube come back, or is that never going to?
No, I think that was a beautiful moment in time, and I mean that was 8 years ago.
That train
right?
has sailed.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that I was able to purchase one, and I know that we actually had a warehouse find either last year or 2 years ago at Gen Con. And they found 2 of them and they brought them to the con, and you know, somebody snapped them up and purchased. You know, I mean, not one person bought both, but 2 different people bought them. I think that was just a special thing for the moment. I don't see us doing anything like that again, partly because, you know, 8 years into it now, printing costs and shipping costs have continued to go up through the roof, and it's really expensive to make RPGs these days. Like I don't know that fans really appreciate like D&D is a whole different industry unto itself, really. Like everybody else, we're dealing with printer shortages and printing costs going up and shipping costs going up because of boats and trains and trucks and strikes and all of COVID, and just there's just so much stuff. And it's really been a challenge to do something cool like that. I was really happy we were able to do the tricorder set, right? Because that's a smaller box with the magnetic lid and stuff, and it was a little more cost effective.
I wouldn't know. I've never been to have the pleasure of holding one in my hand or touching one because, you know, someone. But yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Anyway,
that's okay. You just got us demonetized. You said COVID, so we can do anything now. Let's just turn this into a bacchanalian feast. YouTube hates us now.
Oh
no, I'm kidding.
So that's actually one question I would ask. Speaking of weird things that you've already got the miniatures that people can 3D print. Is there plans to try and get more? Basically, my concern is I would like a little bit more variety in humans. You get a human male and a human female, and they don't. Yeah. They don't look very different.
Yeah, the miniatures have been a long-standing thing for me, because like the game came out, right, and the 2D20 system STA, it's not really focused on miniatures. You don't really need them for the game. They're nice to have. They're not like they're not like D&D or Pathfinder where you really kind of need miniatures on the table to do the whole combat thing. They're really nice to have. The miniatures were not cheap to create, which means as a consequence, it's not cheap to purchase because the physical minis are expensive. And so over time, we were like, well, okay, they're too expensive for us to make. It's going to be even harder for us to make break even, without fans saying, you're not Warhammer. Why are you charging $50 for a box of minis, right? That's crazy, even though they're high quality. And I would put Modiphius's minis up against anybody else in the industry and say that our quality is as good, if not better, than a lot of other people, but that's beside the point. So Star Trek, anyway, because the game does not require the miniatures, it's really hard to justify making more of them even with the STLs, like we released all the minis as STLs a couple years ago, and they're poking along. Sales are fine. There's a very clear contingent of Star Trek gamers who want more minis, and like I see it, like because I would like to have more minis, and other licensees out there are making Star Trek minis that
well, not Star Trek minis,
or not Star Trek minis, but like I know that there's certain licensors that are making Star Trek miniature games, and just me being me, not Modiphius or anything. Like I don't like the style of their miniatures. They just have a weird aesthetic.
Oh, I know which ones you're talking about. I actually,
Yeah.
I have to agree. I didn't like them at first, but put some paint on them, and they actually come out really well. Anyways.
Okay, that's fair. Anyway, so long story short, I did last year. I finally convinced the powers that be at Modiphius to let me try 3 new STLs. Let me do three standalone single STLs just to see if there's a market for them. We did an original series Klingon, a Jem'Hadar, and a Cardassian soldier, just singles by themselves, not part of any pack or anything, just to see how they would do. Because like the fans have consistently been asking for more miniatures over the years. And so I knew there was a market, but I didn't know how big of a market. And it's still early days. Like sales are there, but they're not where they need to be to justify more, right? Like the unfortunate reality is we are in a capitalistic society, and I have to make the profit and loss. I have to make the budget sheet work for the purposes of the company, and it's just not there. And I think part of it's because the game itself doesn't encourage miniatures, right? There's no need for miniature other than a nice to have. And I would love to do more STLs, obviously. I mean, I would really love to do more physical minis, but that's just not the reality that we're at right now. Partly because Modiphius has a couple of amazing miniature games in the works, right? Or not in the works, but actively being published. Like they got Fallout, and we've got Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, and so we have a whole complete dedicated miniatures arm of the company that is doing super devoted work on Fallout and Call to Arms, and it's hard to get any edge in there to say, oh, can you do one STL for me for Star Trek? It's like you get on the schedule, and it's like months and months and months. Anyway, so I've gone on too long about the miniatures, I think, but
not for Brian.
I would like to do more, but it's just I'd like to do more, but it's just not a reality right now.
Okay,
maybe someday.
No, those are good answers. Let's see. Victor Gibson asks, "Did any of you work on the Shackleton Expanse?"
Yeah,
a little bit.
I think that was just before Michael, right? Michael, I think, was just starting to get into the mission.
Yeah, I did not work on that.
Yeah, but Patrick worked on it because Patrick was working on it. I mean, Patrick, you tell your story about the playtest and going into Shackleton.
Yeah, well, I did during the playtest. I wrote the first adventure I'd written in 20 years, and Jim asked me to convert it into a mission brief for Shackleton, which I was happy to do. And they said, "Oh, by the way, we need a sequel." Oh, okay. So I came up with this another mission brief called Splinters of Fire. So I didn't do very much in Shackleton, but what I got to do was fun. I did those. I did a major NPC that goes that you get to use in Splinters, but yeah, it was nice being able to take that adventure from the playtest and very, very early part of the living campaign and update it a little bit, because when I first wrote it, it was like, the rules were still like 1.0, 1.1 draft, and a whole lot of things changed.
Yeah.
By the time the game released, so I was really happy for the chance to update that.
Okay. All right. So then just a couple real quick, because I know we're coming up on the end of our time. So Seraphis said, could you maybe ask the overlords to allow the affiliation of local regional printers? I don't know if that's even a possibility, just with the way that printing is done. But I guess it's print on demand an option where like go through drive-through RPG and then it does printing a little bit more regional, makes shipping a little bit easier?
Yeah, not an option. I think I don't remember if it's a licensor issue with Paramount, CBS, or if it's just the reality of how Modiphius does their distribution and their printing and stuff. It's mostly done in China or usually
like Poland or something.
Lithuania, Poland, because they got the machinery and the know-how and the right cost effectiveness to do it. Sometimes Modiphius will do small print runs of stuff in the UK because literally it's down the street from them in London. Unfortunately, US printers are backed up for like a year and a half just to get on the schedule for them because thanks to other printers in the United States doing it. But honestly, I'd have to probably bug them. I don't know that we've ever talked about printing in Australia. I know it's been hard to get books to Australia just because of the sheer distance involved in going from, China to Australia is one thing, but UK to anywhere other than Europe is a challenge too because of all the travel issues. But right now not feasible to use a regional printer for that kind of stuff. Part of it's quality control too. We want to make sure that the books are of a certain quality, right? And the printers that we use now are super reliable in that respect.
All right. Then last question. Should people get, because I did remember this one from the chat earlier, should people get the regular Star Trek Adventures core rulebook or the Klingon Star Trek Adventures core rulebook?
Why not both?
Why not both?
What are they playing?
The Klingon core book is like super focused on the Klingon experience though, right? So that's the big thing. Like if your group wants to play as Klingons, then absolutely get the Klingon core rulebook. But if you want more Starfleet stuff or you want more things beyond just the Klingons, then you should probably go with the Starfleet oriented core rulebook. That's just a reality. We really tried hard to make that Klingon core rulebook something special that was uniquely focused on Klingons and befitting the Klingons. It turned into a 404-page book, so we packed as much Klingon stuff into it as we could. So it's I don't mean to be flippant about it, but we did have an opportunity with the Klingon core book to do a top-down light edit and rejiggered some of the rules explanations so that it's a little clearer to follow and flows a little bit better. And there's a couple of tweaks to like the advancement system and stuff, but nothing significant. And all those major changes found their way into the rules digest that Bear showed earlier from the tricorder set. So like if you want that, but of course the tricorder rules digest is TOS focused, right? So if you're playing TOS, certainly get that. But if you want next gen DS9 Voyager, you should probably be looking at that original at the main core book that came out in 2017 because that's got all the keys, Federation, Starfleet type stuff.
Perfect.
So it's really two experiences. I don't see it as an either or unless your group is like really focused on wanting to be Klingons.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think we've covered everything. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Obviously,
thank you for having us. That was
anytime.
awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
it was good fun. Yeah.
You guys are welcome back anytime. Like I said, we obviously have a lot of Star Trek going on here. Bear is the Star Trek guy, so all right. So then last thing we'll do is we'll go in reverse order. So we'll start with Michael and go back counterclockwise, opposite of what we did at the top of the stream. But anything that you want to shout out, anything you want to just say just before we go, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'll just give some encouragement. There's a lot of media out there, and a lot of it is sad, and even RPGs can often be very destructive and sad. And the reason I like Star Trek is because it's hopeful. The same reason many of us watch the shows. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be able to work on a product where people leave and have a good time and feel refreshed. It's always, as anyone who's watched the show before, it's always my challenge to write stories that are not glorifying violence, don't have to involve a lot of sex, and don't have to be vulgar, just to prove what the real core of storytelling is. And I'm so happy to work on Star Trek because it caters to all of that. There's enough of that other stuff. I like challenging myself with that personal goal for myself. So thank you all for having us on, and thank you, Jim, of course, for opening the doors, and thank you, Patrick, for being fun to work with.
Jim.
We're going this way. Okay. I want to thank you all, of course, for having us on the show. Really appreciate it. It's always exciting to share love of Star Trek with other people. So thanks for the opportunity to do that. Really gratified to see the fan conversation and just talking with all of you and having fun talking Star Trek. I'm grateful for that. Every day, I'm grateful to be in this position to be able to share my love of Star Trek with other people and to get this out to the masses. I would just encourage the fans, keep supporting each other. And keep having fun with the game, keep playing it. Share that love of Star Trek with every other person. Because, like Michael said, we talked about hope earlier in the show, right? With Prodigy, I think the world needs a little more hope and a little more positivity and a little more fun. And I think Star Trek, at its core, is about community building and having fun and doing cool stuff together. So whether you're playing the solo RPG or you're playing with friends at a table virtually or in person, like, remember to have fun and make it Star Trek and just do cool stuff with it. So that's what I would say. Patrick, over to you.
Oh, wow. You guys have already covered most of what I was gonna say. I do enjoy working something that promotes hope, that promotes that helps people come together, because it's you look out the door and it's this horrible divisive place, and we need to find ways to bring us back together, and that's what Trek's always been for me. And a lot of my greatest friendships in life have been because someone was interested in Trek. And we had, we had that common framework to work with, and I just, we need more of that, and I'm happy every time I get a chance to work to spread that. Every time I get a chance to work on that. So I had something else I was going to say, but kind of flooded off. So, Brian's familiar with that sensation.
Very.
He's actually a surprisingly much better role player, in case you're wondering. He plays.
I've watched. I mean, poor Chuck.
No, I didn't mean Brian. I meant you, Pat. When you're playing Dr. Spain, you actually flow really well, man. Like when you're role playing, you go, man. You have a good time.
All right, Cody.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, well, being the guy that said nothing all night because I'm the least knowledgeable about Star Trek. But I will say this, that I've had a ton of fun playing Star Trek Adventures. And surprisingly enough, I didn't know I would have that much fun. I mean, I've played Star Trek role-playing games in the past, but they were very short and fizzled out. And this has been one of the best role-playing experiences I've had in a while. So I think it's a great game. I think it definitely captures the feel of Star Trek. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I actually give it the 2 thumbs up. I think highly recommended. Yeah, that's
awesome.
been all I have to say.
Is it Kirk Dice? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very happy for Kirk Dice. Oh, is it my turn to talk?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys. Jesus, at this point in time, if you watch this channel, you know what you know about me and Star Trek. I mean, Christ almighty, every other podcast I go on, I'm the Star Trek guy. I have many more facets than that. Heroic, coming soon. If you like Marvel superheroes, you're going to love Heroic. Pay attention. But yeah, no, it's Star Trek's Adventures is a really great game. I would easily say it's my favorite mechanical version of Trek so far, and that's really important to me. Facet Trek will always be my love because that's what I started with. Therefore, that's what I love. But knowing that you put the triangle in and stuff like that, it's kind of cool. Yeah, pick it up, guys. Go get the book. You'll like it. You won't regret having it. And if you want to see it played poorly with half the rules ignored, we've got Star Trek Sojourner every other Tuesday. Odyssey's on hiatus while one of our players is on honeymoon or vacation or whatever it is in Europe. And we've got Paradise Station on Fridays because, I had to have a TNG DS9 and a Voyager series because of...
There you go.
You're welcome.
Shut up, Wesley. Shut up, Wesley. But beyond that, thank you so much, everybody. Okay.
All right. Well, Brian, Gaming with ADHD, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But everybody, thank you so much for being here. Star Trek, I said it before, I remember watching the premiere episode of Next Generation, and it has been a part of my life for pretty much ever since. Actually, one story I haven't told that I will tell real quick. The day that all of my children were born, except for one, I watched an episode of Star Trek with them. Not obviously that they remember it, but it was like for the third one, it was a couple days later, and I was up late, and Star Trek happened to come on. So I literally ran into his room, and it's this 2-day-old. I'm like, nope, you're coming over and sitting with me. So that is literally how big of I'm not as knowledgeable as Bear, but it has been a big impact, on my life. So
my oldest son was born in May of 2009. And my best friend, my wife was in the hospital in the process of preparing to deliver said son, and my best friend is in the hospital room talking to my wife going, "Can I take your husband to see the new Star Trek movie?" And she said yes. I mean, I went and saw the first JJ Trek movie, and a day or two later, my son was born. So I'm with you.
Came out that week, right? Your son was born. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
The moral lesson, folks, of this entire 2 hours is have your priorities straight.
And if not, file a complaint with HR.
As long as your priority is Star Trek.
Exactly. So everybody, go check out Star Trek Adventures. I know that Michael, Jim, and Patrick will all appreciate it. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. And I can't.
One
think
last
of
thing before we run.
Oh,
next week, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to be having Dave Zeb Cook on. So tune back in for that one, and Cody will be hosting this one, which will be fun. Nice. And then we'll get back to Sanity the week after when I take over again.
Sanity? Sanity. Is that what we're calling it?
That's what we're calling it.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and end it, folks. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you all